Josh, and I really appreciate the fact that the chair of the TTC has come out this morning, because I think we're in this together. All of us are in this together, and I mean all the members of City Council and the other governments and the residents of the GTA, frankly, where we've got to do something about the traffic, and we've got to do something to expand the transit options for people who live in this region. You'll see behind us the Gardiner Expressway. During rush hour this morning, it was bottled up with stop-and-go traffic. It is that way much of the time and much of the day, pretty well every day. And that is a result of our trying to have our cake and eat it too. Enjoying the vibrant and dynamic growth of our downtown as a place to work and to live and to play, but coasting on the transportation infrastructure built decades ago and financed by the Toronto residents of the time. One of the results of this coasting is traffic, which is a growing nightmare, and the number one fix is to give people transit options so they can get out of their cars. Creating those transit options will benefit 905 and 416 residents, both of which groups are sitting in the traffic today at tremendous cost to their families and to the economy. People out there know that building transit and fixing traffic will not happen for free. They understand that. But they have been lulled into thinking someone else will pay. For decades, they've been lulled into thinking that someone else will pay, while transit became completely inadequate and traffic descended into chaos. If we are going to tame the traffic beast, especially in light of our expected future growth, let alone the status of the city today, it means having a plan today to pay for crucially needed transit for today and for tomorrow. I have a plan to build the transit we need and to protect the services we depend on, while keeping Toronto affordable for our hardworking property taxpayers of every age. And a significant elements of that plan are going in front of Council this week. The plan is bold because it is honest. The transit we need isn't free, never has been, and never will be. And there is no somebody else to pay for a traffic fix for a livable city. Road tolls and the proposed hotel tax are founded on a simple premise. Users, including non-tax-paying visitors to our city, should be asked to make a modest contribution to the cost of keeping Toronto livable, and in this case, fixing the traffic they end up in too. These proposed changes are fair, and the 905 residents who are concerned about making a modest contribution will be among those who benefit most from improved traffic and improved transit. These proposed changes place more of a focus, as I think we should be doing, on people who use services paying for them. The proposed tolls will help us manage congestion better, as they have elsewhere in the world, and encourage greater use of transit. These measures are the best way to help address the $33 billion worth of projects that we need to build. It is not an option. We must move ahead with building these transit projects. We simply can't go on not building transit, not fixing the traffic, and not owning up to the fact that building transit and fixing traffic aren't free. And again, I say to those, as did Chair Cole, I say to those who have expressed opposition, I respect your right to take the position against road tolls. But leadership also requires you to spell out in detail where the funds would come from to build the transit and fix the traffic. Otherwise, we must be left to conclude that those people will join the long list of those politicians who've tried to fool the public into thinking better transit and traffic are free. This week, we have before us at the Toronto City Council a plan that I put forward with some of my colleagues working on it together to make the most significant investment in transit and transportation infrastructure in decades, one that will cut congestion and help get this city moving. Every single penny which goes into the infrastructure fund from these road tolls will go to transit and transportation improvement. If we need electric fences to protect these funds against those with any other purpose in mind for that money, we will have them. My determination to see these funds go entirely to better transit and to help fixing transportation and traffic is absolute. I believe what I have done this past year with the help and support of people like Josh Cole is exactly what people know we must do and what they expect me to do as the mayor. First, have a plan to build transit and fix traffic, a real multi-year transit plan and transportation network plan. Second, be honest about how it will be paid for. Find ways to pay for it which are effective and which fairly spread the burden, starting with users. Third, make sure the dedicated funds are used exclusively to fund the traffic and transit plan. And then finally, get on with actually doing it. Put the means of payment in place, move forward with the transit plans, and actually get building. This is the plan that I will be considering with my colleagues this week at City Council. I am confident that I can earn their support. May I just say before moving to questions, a note of commendation and congratulations on a great season to the Toronto FC. They did us proud, and while the ending wasn't the way we would have wanted it, the rules are the rules, and I think they were an exciting team all year long. They got to the championship game. It was a marvelous event for our city. I will, in the next day or two, be preparing for shipment to Seattle some real beer. I would warn Mayor Ed Murray of Seattle that before he tries the real beer, he should do it outside of office hours and probably when he's sitting down, because he's not used to beer of that strength. But we'll send him some Amsterdam beer, and we will send him similarly some Tim Hortons coffee for his enjoyment. But I do congratulate the Seattle Sounders, and I most of all congratulate our Toronto FC Reds, who put in a great season and who played a great game the other night, and that they'll be back next year to entertain and excite us again. Questions?
Make the comments you would repeal the tolls. Do you see that as simply interfering? What do you make of all that?
Mr. Brown has his job to do. I just think, though, when you get involved in kind of what amounts to playing politics and playing the angles in politics, that's fine. People do that. But you have an obligation to say then, how are you going to pay for the transit? Are you not going to build the transit? Are you going to just leave this traffic the way it is and just say that's fine, that Toronto can strangle on its own growth? And so I will look forward to hearing his answers on those questions. And it's not good enough to say, don't worry, we'll fix it, or don't worry, we'll do better than the last guys. Those are the answers that have got us into this mess for decades. We need people to step up and say how they're going to pay and what they're going to build and when they're going to build it. That's what I'm doing, and I think he owes it to people to do the same thing.
Mayor Tory, not all councillors are in favour of road tolls. Councillor Memolini's putting up a banner just down the road. How difficult of a debate do you expect tomorrow?
Well, a lot of these things at Toronto City Council are difficult to go out and attract support for. But in this case, I'm gratified at the response that people have had, because I think they agree with me and with Josh Cole that it's time for some honesty. It's time to get on with building. The days of having meetings of City Council where every single way of trying to raise money to build transit is turned down, those days are over, because otherwise we're going to ruin a city that is strangling on its own traffic. And so I'm confident that we can earn the support of the majority of City Council for these measures that we've put forward, and that we can then move forward after this meeting this week to get the necessary machinery in place, including support from the province, so we can get ahead. We have all been talking to city councillors, as I routinely do in my staff team before every meeting, and I am working hard to earn the support of a majority of the council. I think we're on track to do that, but the debate will unfold in the coming days. But obviously, I think people recognize that it's time for honesty. It's time to sort of actually summon up the courage to say we've got to build the transit and we have to pay for it, to acknowledge that there is no free transit, and to say first and foremost that we've got to fix the traffic mess that we've got into in this city, and the best way to do that is by building transit, and I have a plan to do that. Well, I've set out a couple of measures that I personally support: the hotel tax, the cancellation of the vacant commercial levy, vacant commercial rebate. Now the other options, both a combination of expenditure reduction or other revenue measures, are in the hands of the Budget Committee, and I'm not going to preempt their considerations, which have just begun. But I'm very confident that, notwithstanding a gap of, say, $90 million, that we can, in the coming weeks, get that resolved before the budget goes to the City Council in February. A lot of good work has been done to date, and much more will follow in the weeks ahead, and that we can do so without negatively affecting the residents of the City of Toronto. I think people do understand the fact that when there's a snowfall, and in this case it didn't stop until 3 o'clock in the morning, the first priority is to get the major roads clear. And we had literally hundreds of trucks and salting vehicles and plows of all kinds out clearing the snow from the major roads. And you then go and get to the side streets and the smaller streets at a later time. But I think our workers for the first storm of the year did a very good job, a commendable job, and I thank them for their hard work. And I know they're ready for the winter that lies ahead, hopefully without too many snowstorms. I spent 2 long or short years at City Council, depending on how you characterize it, and I've seen that there are motions of all kinds that come forward and they're unpredictable. I would only tell you on something like the car tax, I've made it very clear that not only will I vote against it, I will get up and fight against any attempt that somebody might make to reintroduce that, because I think it's wrong. So all I can say is we'll see. I've indicated some of the measures that I support, and I've placed my confidence in the Budget Committee, which contains a group of people from across the council who are going to sit down and look at possible expenditure reductions and look at other ways they could raise revenue to close the gap that is actually relatively modest compared to where we started. I'm confident they'll be able to do their work in a way that everybody can support and in a way that keeps property taxes low, at or below the rate of inflation.
What are some of the things you're doing to increase pedestrian safety?
So what are some of the...
Pedestrian safety, how big of a concern is that, and what will council do?
Pedestrian safety is a huge concern, and make no mistake, people often say, well, when I talk about getting traffic moving, this has to be at the expense of pedestrian safety. It's not. Pedestrian safety is number one. And all the things we're doing, and it's a remarkable set of things that have been done so far already in 2016, changing intersections, changing signals, lengthening cross times for seniors. But it's clear we have much more to do, especially as it regards seniors, and that involves, first and foremost, the creation of these senior zones, senior safety zones, on a much broader basis across the city so the seniors can be safe. But we have a new transportation director. I'm looking forward to a lengthy discussion with her, which may take place in the next day or two. And we will do what we have to do to keep people safe in this city, while at the same time making sure that people can get around. I will be looking at every legal or regulatory means possible to make absolutely sure this money is set aside only for transit and transportation infrastructure, and whatever means I can get back from the city solicitor or anybody else who can advise me that will contain this money and protect it against the incursions of the present and future city councillors, I will accept that advice and put that forward to the city council. Well, I mean, people tell me there are potentially problems with having kind of a very separate, segregated sort of trust fund, as it were, but I'm not going to let the naysayers stand in the way of that. I believe what is crucial to the success of this plan is having the taxpayers, the citizens, understand that when we extract this money from them for transportation and transit, that's exactly and only where it goes. And so I'm not going to succumb to people hand-wringing about this sort of thing. I'm going to opt for satisfying the residents of Toronto that this money is only for that purpose and cannot be tampered with by anybody who has a temptation to do so. Thank you all very much for coming.